Alright, and lastly for this video, I'm going to be covering the SQLite portion of this ICP. So again, in here, most of my changes just occurred within the employee activity and the employer activity. What I had to do for employee activity was give a way to update and delete employees, and the same goes for the employer activity. So the home screen just tells us to select an activity, so whether you're an employer or employee. We'll start with the employers. We've got a company name. We'll call it UMKC. Description, Education, Tech. And we'll say they're founded 01/01/1990. So we can save that, and then when we go back to our employees, let's create a new employee here. Jimmy Blundell, date of birth 05/11/1995, job description student, date employed 08/18/2018, just as an example. And right now, with our employer name, we get the drop-down option for UMKC, and we can save that. It says that it's saved, and now if we were to go and search for this particular employee, we get all the details down here. Jimmy Blundell, my birth date, my name, as well as my employer's information. At the same token, we can delete this employee, and so that way when we search, of course nothing's going to come up as the employee is deleted. Notice how UMKC is still here as an employer. If we go to that employers and go back to UMKC, Education, 01/01/1990, we can delete, and it tells us we are deleting the record. Once that goes away, we should be good. So that way, if I were to go back to employees, you notice that there is no UMKC option here. So both, I showed you that I could both create an employee and as well as an employer, and delete an employee and employer as well. I guess to show one more piece of functionality, let's go back to the employers real quick. And create a company ABC, ABCDEF, 01/01/1990. Save that. And I want to show you how I can update employees. 01/01/1990, student 01/01/195. I'm just making up dates here. We'll save that. So when we go to search it, again, here's all my details. And say I wanted to update something, my job description from student to graduated. We can update that, and you see that reflected in the data down here. As far as the code is concerned, like I said, in the employee activity, we have an update to database function here where we, let me make this a little bigger for you, where we get the last name, and sorry, my cat's coming all around here. We put a couple values here, like the first name of the employee, the job description, the employer ID, and whatnot, and bind all those. And then at a point, we update within the database after filling out these prerequisites here. We update within the database the employee's name, values that we may have updated, like such as I said, their first name or job description or their employer ID. And then we read that from the database so that it's reflected. And sort of the same token for deleting from the database. We of course are going to make our toast that says deleting record. We initiate our database here, and to get the readable database, and we get the first name and last name from such database. All this is within the employee class, remember. And then for our clauses, for making the SQL clause, I have a where clause right here. And this, I also have the where arguments. So we have the first name plus last name. And then we call it database.delete with both the where clause and the where arguments on the employee table name. And then, of course, that deletes it. If we were to read from the database again, as you see, it's reflected in the new database. And essentially the same thing applies. I won't go into the code again for this one, but for the employer activity, we wanted to update and delete from the database. We have essentially the concepts here, where we're gathering that information, putting our clauses into the database, or into the database call, as well as the arguments, and then updating the database with the clause and arguments. So a clause is something such as where in that case. And same thing for deleting from the database down here. Having our where clause, having our string of arguments, and then deleting, calling a database.delete with that clause and arguments as well. So again, that covers it for this ICP, and I will see you guys shortly with the next one.